All right. Hey, guys. Welcome to the episode of Old Reader, New Reader. It's great to see you all again. We have me, Maddie, and our old reader, Omar.
Correction. This is new reader, new reader.
I know,
Because
about to
neither
say.
one of us has read this before.
Yeah, so for this week of Spooktober, we chose something that neither of us have read based on a recommendation from my good friend Lee Clark, who is one of our viewers and also has done a show with me on Heroes in Crisis. Hey, Robin, this isn't your show. She didn't read the book. Anyway, so we are reading These Savage Shores. So it's 5 issues. I was under the impression this was a self-contained story, but I think when I was looking online after, it said something about volume 1 of a trade. I don't know if that was a misprint or what, but
I was under the impression when I finished this that it was all self-contained.
Yeah, same. So maybe it is, and maybe just people are getting that wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, so this is something new, unorthodox on the show, where neither one of us has read it, but it was something interesting that was brought to Maddie's attention, and I'm glad we did it. This is published by Vault Comics, like Maddie said. The trade paperback, which is linked in the description, will be available sometime in November. It's only 5 issues long. The creators are 2 people that I've never heard of, and that's Ram V. He's the writer. I assume it's a he. I'm sorry. He or she. And Sumit Kumar. He is the illustrator. I know that's a he.
Yeah, and I've never heard of either of these people. But I was impressed. I mean,
so let's talk a little bit about the premise of this book. It's only 5 issues, and yes, welcome to New Reader, New Reader. Thank you, Larry. That is correct.
So this is set in 1766. I'm pretty sure. So half the story is in England, and half the story is in
Are you trying to make me pronounce the name of where it's supposed to be?
Well, I'm trying to think of the best way to say it, because it's in. Is it in India? Because it's part of the.
Yeah, it's the East. It's in the
East Indies.
Calicut.
Yeah, Calicut.
Part of the Malabar coast.
Yeah.
I say that like I know what I'm talking about, but there was a map in this.
You sound very impressive.
Yeah, Malabar. Yeah, so it's all part of that coast.
So this is when, for the history buffs, I guess, is when, at that time, like England and other European countries were trying to get into India for trading purposes. So that's what the kind of start of their not only start, but that part of their involvement in that area. So that's like the setting behind this.
Absolutely.
So like basically we're dealing with like a horror fantasy type of story. So
I didn't know what to expect. I'll be honest with you.
I didn't either.
I had no idea. Well, when I first read this, it starts off like a love story. The cover looks like one of those love Harlequin novels.
Yeah.
Because the dude has half of his top off. The chick is, almost dressed sexually, and he's holding her, and I'm like, okay, what did Maddie pick? So I'm reading the first few pages, and it starts off like a love story. The female character, what is her name? Corey, right? That's her name. Is asking
to
Bishan, where did you come from, Bishan? Or how were you made? And I'm like, oh, that's sweet. And then there's this, what I assumed was a love letter from this character who's on a boat.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of goes back and forth as to how within the first 5 pages, you find out that this character that was writing a letter was a vampire.
Right.
And he had been taken by the dark side. So I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Then within the first 6 pages, you're introduced to a character that is kind of like a vampire hunter who's going after that character that was writing the letter. I cannot remember the character's name, Alave or something like that. But anyway.
It sounded French.
Yeah. So the vampire that he went after survives, and pretty much the guy that made him a vampire, he's like, okay, we need to get rid of him. He needs to be far away from us. Send him over.
Get rid of him, but he needs to. He's like, he's committed a crime, and he was caught basically, and so the only thing he can do is really leave England and get on one of these trade ships out of the country. So we're already we're introduced to both worlds pretty quickly. And then not so quickly, we learn that, he's a vampire, right? Because we're seeing his letters while he's on the ship, and he talks about this room, but it doesn't immediately give that impression that it's him, right? And so I was like, oh, okay. It was kind of neat the way it was talking about. I was like, oh, so he's keeping something in the ship, right? He's keeping something in the room, and then it's revealed that it's him on his way to India to stay with this young prince slash king, this young boy, this young ruler.
Right. And his majesty does have, I guess it would be his manservant friend almost.
Yeah, so with the way that
wears a mask the whole time.
Mm-hmm. The way that John is portrayed is basically you see him always by the princess' right side. And then he even references this later, he's usually either kind of a servant or a manservant. Sometimes he's the ruler, but usually kind of this just supportive figure, this tall man in a mask, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's so cool.
He is pretty badass. And you find out that that's the character that was talking at the beginning to the female character. He's also the character in the front cover.
Yeah.
With her. So he was kind of a mystery. Because Bishan is all you know about him is that he's the king, or I guess the prince's servant.
Yeah, and I like the way the first issue's even set up, because you're almost kind of led to believe that Pierrefon's going to be this main character.
Exactly, right? That's what I thought too. Yeah, I'm like, okay, so
okay.
this guy's the main character. He's here. He's kind of a douchebag. Oh no, he's going after Corey because he sees her swimming in the pond. And he's like, okay, obviously he's going to go feast because he gets his teeth out. And he even calls her pet, right? So you know what's going to happen. And then out of nowhere, he pretty much is decapitated. So the guy that you thought was going to be one of the main characters is gone.
Yeah.
And that's where that story ends. That's the first issue, leading us to the second issue with the cover of the badass dude that's a vampire hunter, and I can't remember that guy's name. Then you get to find out more about him.
Right, and so all through there we're getting little touches of Bishan, right? So I like how I like how in each issue, with 5 issues, we're switching basically the narrator almost. So, and the narrator is usually the letter writer, whoever's writing the letter in that.
Yeah, I like that too, because it keeps the story moving and it keeps you in suspense. I like also that in each issue she always asks the question, well, with the exception of the final issue, how were you made?
Yeah.
So you know that Bishan is not a normal dude. He's some kind of immortal, but he's not a vampire either, because obviously he was able to decapitate the vampire pretty quickly. So.
Well, it almost makes it the way that, when she does that every time in every issue, when they have those discussions, it almost feels like you're just listening to an old story, like an old folk tale or myth, the way that it's repeated. It reminded me of reading, I don't know, different creation story myths or something.
No,
and then she asked him again, "How are you made?" And I really like
that's a good way of putting it. That's the way because that's exactly because they are almost like in a Garden of Eden every time you see that flashback.
Yeah.
Right. So there's also this backstory of these Europeans trying to come in there and take over the government and take over the land and pretty much just make roads for travels, and so they're teaming up with, I guess, oh gosh, I always forget the other palace. That's not with the prince, but the actual people that killed his father.
It's hard not to have it physically in front, because we have the two families, right?
Yeah, and I read this all through Comixology.
They had their own. Yeah, they had their own war and dispute.
Yes.
Before even this bigger picture of England came into play. And so you have that all these different country dynamics going on at the same time amidst this, supernatural overarching story that we have, which is pretty cool.
And in the second issue, you get to find out more about the prince and Bichon's like his what is it? Their like their background, like how he almost sees him like a little brother, almost, even though he's a creature that's eternal.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of weird to see him humanized with all these characters like Corey and the prince, because he mentions like he distanced himself from humans a long time ago,
Mm-hmm.
because you're immortal, so you kind of get bored with the people that you see die around you.
Well, he's been like a caretaker for this family almost.
Yeah,
like,
after his dad died, right?
Yeah, because it seems like he's been there for several of his ancestors too.
Yeah.
And then we also learn that, like, even though he's taken on this role too, with Corey, because he knew Corey when she was a little girl, and she would ask him the same questions, how are you made? And she would listen to his stories. But like with Corey and their relationship looming, that's kind of like one of the, like, a newer feeling for him, that closeness and that romance and that love with her is like a new thing for him too.
I thought that was pretty interesting too. I love this issue in the second issue where they're hunting after the jaguar.
Mm-hmm.
Because so the vampire hunter is going after the boy because he knows the creature's going to come after the boy, whatever the creature is, right?
No, that's not why. Remember,
it's not.
The hunter, he goes after. The reason why he comes in the first place is after the
Vikram. That's
the first
the
vampire,
name.
Right? But then when he gets there, he's like, there's got to be a reason this boy is in power. So this boy must be.
Oh, that's right.
And
I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah, so he thinks he's a demon. So he's like, well, I'm going to figure that out tonight, right? Once I get my shot, when he's distracted, when they're going after this leopard, like, I'm going to, shoot something at him, and I'll find out then if he's a boy or a demon. Of course, when he shoots that, and does it in the coolest way. Yeah. I really like this whole scene because both the arrow and the shot.
I don't know if you can see it
from the shotgun go off at the same time. Right,
and then you get this splash page here.
Beautiful.
That is beautifully drawn of Bichon and what he really looks like in his demon form, because that's the first time you see it in issue 2. And then you have Vikram in the background with his glowing eyes. Because, I think at that point, you're right. At that point, I was like, well, obviously the prince is the creature and maybe this was just a red herring. The story of Bichon was just a red herring. But no, it turns out to be the way it was. And
it moves so quick too. I like this little scene because, you see the arrow and the shot, and then Bichon moves in front of the prince. And at the same time,
awesome.
It leaves Corey open to the leopard attacking. But then the prince is able to shoot the leopard. So this all happens like very, very quickly. But I just like the quick way it happens, because you don't really know what's going on until the end of that issue. Because it's a bunch of just different pieces being thrown in the way because you don't really know where it's going to go. But he looks so cool. Reminds me of gargoyles.
Yeah. It kind of looks like Goliath there.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the artwork, I'm sure, a little bit later, but I quite enjoyed it. So it is at this point where the master, Senior Grano, I guess, gets the notice that Pierrefont? Yeah.
Pierrefont?
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
that guy's dead.
Yeah, his son, basically.
The guy that he made into a vampire, and he sired, right? And now he's all pissed, so he's like, all right, send for the others, we're going in. So now they're going to make their way from London to India in this little town.
And then amidst all of that, we have the war starting, because we have, the two palaces, the two lineages, the two rulers, whatever.
Yeah.
The older one who killed the prince's father and the prince, they meet up to discuss potential truce to kind of push back the English force.
Yeah, so Vikram is meeting with the guy that pretty much killed his dad.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're setting aside all differences. And then there's rumors of dead. Is it it's in the third issue that they're talking about the rumors of like the dead rising, right?
I'm not sure yet of that, because I can't remember how it flows. But yeah, I mean, that eventually comes up. Because it seems like they don't, the vampires themselves take a while to get in town.
It's
and
after the
during
war.
the war, because they make this truce, they go to fight the war together. And by fighting the war together, I mean Bishan leads some of their forces.
He volunteers to go, and he makes Vikram the promise that he'll come back to him.
Yeah.
It was a really sweet moment. I really enjoyed that too.
Yeah, and he goes to war. It's like, I'm gonna.
And he tells Corey, like, he's like, I'm leaving, and she's like, you made the decision to leave.
Yeah, and he tries to go in as like a man, just as himself, and be, no mask, just be part of the forces. But ultimately, of course, they're betrayed. This truce doesn't really work out. All of their forces are killed, and then Bishan he's forced to become, or come to terms with himself and his monster form.
Before that, though, was they're all getting slaughtered, and what's his name? Hyder. That guy's forces never came as backup, right? So it reminded me of the scene in like Braveheart where it's obviously a betrayal, and you see that look of despair. And so Bishan's like, oh, I thought he was dead. Like, I thought, they were going to kill him. I thought they were going to do
it too.
But no, he wakes up, like, it's this beautiful scene where you see his eyes glowing red.
Yeah.
Right? And then that's where it continues into the 4th issue. And I love the next scene. Love the opening scene.
To Corey too, like the letters he sends back.
Yeah, like, that was sweet because he thought he was dead. Like, I was gonna come back, but no. And then the letters are like, by the way, I love this opening shot of somebody's feet just dangling there, and then just look at that gorgeous artwork. I can't wait for this to be physically released. That's probably my favorite shot. There are a lot of cool drawings in this particular comic, but this is my favorite one by far. That's just so brutal and beautifully done. Anyway, go ahead, Maddie.
Yeah, so I mean, I know that we're kind of doing the thing that we try not to. We're summarizing everything.
Yeah, it's only 5 issues, though.
It's only 5 issues. Yeah, so then, like, that issue, we kind of see 2 things happen. Like, one is the vampires closing in through town. So you hear from the prince, because the prince is writing a letter to Bishan, right? Telling him what's going on, hoping that he comes home. And he's saying that the dead are starting to rise. They're walking through town, and soon they're going to close in on the palace where we have the prince and Corey.
Yes.
And while this is happening, Bishan is basically full. He's come to terms with his being a Rakshas. I don't know if it's the same as a Rakshasa. I don't know if that's spelled the same, but his like demon form, and he's like picking off soldiers, and he's fighting, and eventually making his way home, right, towards the end. But when we have the prince who, with the dead coming, he lets the vampire hunter.
Yeah, he's like, what these things are. You know how to stop them, right?
And that was really cool. The whole scene where they're at the house or the palace, and the vampires have come, right? The vampires and these leaves of undead.
Yeah, so it starts off with one dude. God, I don't know if I can do it justice by showing you my comicsology here, but just it starts off with one naked dude walking out of the bushes, and then a bunch of zombified vampires coming out, surrounding the palace, and it's just so badass. Because then there's a sword fight between the vampire and the vampire hunter. A bunch of arrows are thrown. I wish that this was. I think this is the only part that I was like, I wish this was 6 issues instead of 5. And I know I complain a lot of times when I'm like, let's just get to the story. There's just so much padding. But I kind of wish that this, because of the artwork and because of the characters, had just 1 issue with nothing but this pure fighting, and I would have been completely fine with it. I don't care about the dialogue. I would have been okay with that, because I feel like, I can't even see it. Like, he was only barely in it, but he was such a cool part of it.
Character, though.
The vampire hunter dude, he gets fucking slaughtered by the old dude, the old master.
Yeah, well, the way he talked about it too, like, because he makes quick work of the other vampires, but the oldest one, he's like, no, I have a resistance to silver now, obviously. Like, you don't know how old blood works.
Yeah.
Everything healed, rebuilt everything. And it's just cool. It's just the way these, like,
brutal that is. And then the next, he just slaughters him, rips his arm out, pegs him into the ground. Oh, what an awesome scene. And then, of course, that all leads to
the coolest scene of issue 4 when Bishan comes back.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, because he comes back to see, he sees the prince, but then
he wants
and
to see
that's okay.
Corey.
But seeing Corey, because he goes to see her, and we see his face.
So we see this, right?
Yeah.
You see her foot, and he gets down on his knees and starts crying because he knows that obviously something's happened, and you're like, oh damn, he's done turned her into a vampire. So yeah, she was turned into a vampire, but now you're like, okay, this could happen.
But in the way that he because when she sees him, right? I love that line because she, instead of asking how he's made, she's like, let me tell you. Let me tell you how I was made.
That was awesome. That's why I said all of them except for issue 4, and then it takes us to issue 5, which is the final confrontation between Bishan and the vampire lord, whatever his name was. But I thought that was really cool because, it starts off with the historical aspect of it.
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all can see this, but that's one of the things we didn't talk about was the way that it's written. They're done through not just letters, but also like pamphlets, like war pamphlets and things like that about the East Indian Trading Company and all that. And then the coolest part I thought was, they're all decked out. Like they're going to a fancy dinner.
Yeah.
Like they're in a carriage and it's a slow burn. And usually I'm like, get to the point, get to the story. But I'm like, I know this is the final issue. I'm okay with this. And then they have dinner with the dude, with the guy that he's about to fight, knowing that they're both going to have to fight. I'm like, oh, this is so badass.
Well, then the discussions all the way too. Because I was really surprised that they stayed together. Usually when you turn like a lover into a vampire, they're always evil and it really is sad, and I'm so glad they didn't do that because he was turned, he got rid of, he was like, okay, I'm going to say goodbye to all of my responsibilities. I'm done now. I bequeath my kingdom to this prince. I'm leaving because now his lover is immortal like him. There's no fleeting love like they talked about. They can be together. So they go to kill the guy who did this to her, and they're able to have a really good conversation about, how she's through this is able to kind of understand or kind of have somewhat of an understanding of what Bishan is and what he goes through, right?
Yeah.
She's always asking, tell me how you were made or tell me how you're born, and just the way she's like, I kind of get it now. I kind of understand more of you,
because she herself has become this immortal creature.
Yeah.
So then the fight happens, and I love this fight because it's brutal. They're both creatures of the night, right?
Yeah.
Bishan turns first, and then the vampire lord turns into his vampire creature. So and then like the tides have turned. Like Bishan starts losing. Like he gets his ass kicked. He gets his horn ripped out, and dude stabs him in the back of the head with his own horn.
Yeah.
And she's dying, and she's like, "I'm sorry, Bishan." So I'm like, "Oh, of course this is gonna go that route." So she lets him, bite down and drink her blood. So in my head, I'm like, he's gonna turn into this super uber fucking creature with wings, but not really. Something else happens that I wasn't expecting to happen.
Oh yeah, it was like he became multiple.
It's almost like Gremlins, right? Like he started just popping out multiple versions of himself, and they all go after the vampire lord and take him down and just destroy him. And then she lights them all on fire. She lights them all on fire. Not just the vampire, but also all of Bishan's, I guess, non-sentient beings. And they walk away. And he returns to say goodbye to Vikram, right? And that's where it ends with nothing will ever be the same. So I thought that was just a unique way of telling a vampire story. Yeah. So let's talk about, was there anything else that you wanted to mention?
There's one more thing that we didn't talk about. I thought that was really poignant in issue 5. Was the comparative narrative between like what Bishan was going through while fighting this vampire but also at the same time, what the prince and that sultan's son were going through at the same time. Because,
Yeah.
they talk a lot about like how they kind of had to sell their soul to England for this. That even though it's not an enemy that's taking their lands per se or taking over, the power is still theirs, but they've sold their soul for this. And this whole thing of like, like the prince asks him like, well, did we win? And he says yes, but he doesn't look him in the eyes. Because like we've won, but, and I like this comparative narrative between like what's going on with them, because it's this kind of empty win. Because I see the same thing with Bishan too, where yeah, he's won, but what does he let go in himself that he had control over before?
Right,
Like
and that's why he has to say goodbye, right? So now they're both, him and Corey, are savage creatures.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy that, because it's not in your stereotypical stories, she either dies when the vampire lord dies, or he sacrifices himself to save her. But no, they're both together, and now they're different.
Yeah.
They're different than when they started. And now she has her own story to tell. And this taking place in 1766 makes me, if there is a volume 2, are we going to look at another year? Is it going to be another century, another decade? Because I'm excited, because Larry said there is going to be a volume 2. Yeah,
I'd be curious to see if they'll stick with these characters or do something different. I think I'd be interested either way.
So let's talk about the book. What things that you liked and things you didn't like as far as the story? What stood out to you? What was really good, and what worked, what didn't?
Well, I love the art, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really incredible. It's beautiful. Just beautiful art, beautiful colors. I thought it was great. I really enjoyed the whole story. It was just, it had a different feel to it.
It did, and I enjoy that about it. I was tricked into thinking I was reading some goddamn love novel at the beginning that I thought you were messing with me and you picked out. Even the title, These Savage Shores, I almost see Fabio on the cover. But after, I was hooked on that first issue, and it sucks that it just it was a quick read. To me, I think I would have benefited from being a little bit longer, like if they could have added an extra chapter, but that's just me being greedy. The artwork, I love. Oh God, what is this guy's name? It's because I need to say it because it's beautiful. Sumit Kumar. His artwork reminds me of like Sean Murphy, Marcos Toe, those kind of like just sketchy, but just so easy to follow, especially when you have like all these fighting sequences between vampires and whatever Bishar, whatever he was. Did I ever say what kind of creature he was?
Well, he referred to himself as a Rakshas.
Okay.
Now I'm not entirely sure what that is, but I mean, looking at. I mean, I guess one of my big pros about this, the things I really liked about it, was just not just that it was this really cool horror fantasy, but also that it was in a different setting. We've seen vampires in England. That's nothing new.
What?
But like to have this story that's historical, it's an historical setting, right? And involve both, a familiar image like England, like of vampires and vampire hunters and vampire nobility, and put that with, these mythical creatures in India, and have that set in India was really cool. I just really like that. It's just nice to like have fantasy that's not in the same setting all the time.
It's a nice break from the norm.
Yeah,
I agree with that 100%.
And it's smart. It was a smart book. I mean, like the dialogue was very well done. And again, like it was like reading a fable almost, the way that it was.
Yeah, I enjoy the dialogue as well, and I think one of the things when it comes to books like this, I hardly know anything about this time in India, so I'm just going to assume that all of this is historically accurate, with the exception of these mythical creatures that are caught in between this ongoing struggle between two opposing forces. Everything else, sure, it all happened. And I wonder how often that's happened to me reading comic books or just books in general. But I don't know. It's hard to say what I didn't like because there was very little I did not like, other than the fact that maybe a wasted potential in one of the most coolest characters, like an old dude vampire hunter from
Yeah.
England. I really like this. Well, so Larry seems to know a lot more about this book. In this world, vampires are not the top of the food chain. No, although he did what's his name's ass there at the end. If it wasn't for Corey, I think he would have got it. So, what would you give this book out of 10, Madeline?
I think I'd give it an 8.
8. How did you give it an 8? I thought you liked it. You had no complaints.
I really like it. I think it's really good.
I was going to give it a 9.5. I really, really liked it. I thought it was
good. I'm
great. I liked it more than you did. Okay.
No, I
take
really
it.
liked it.
I'm not trying to change. I'm not trying to change your score. 8 is a good score, right? 8 is a good score.
I definitely recommend it. You know, I think this book deserves like a very nice hardcover.
I agree. So this is the cover to what the trade paperback's going to look like. It will be available in November. Again, I put the link in the description where you can pre-order it from. And I would love to have this. But if they're going to continue, like, make another Savage Shorts, I wouldn't mind a complete collection. Like, I'd love a complete collection of this with a nice little ribbon. See, there I go daydreaming about my perfect books again. Love as long as they keep the same creative team, that would have been awesome.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of praise for this book, not just from critics, but also like comic book creators. Like Scott Snyder loves this book. Kieran Gillian loves this book. Warren Ellis loved this book. That's just crazy. Like, I hadn't heard of it until you mentioned it last week. Yeah. And up until this afternoon when I started reading, I thought we were reading a Harlequin novel. So thank you, Lee. Thank you, Maddie, for suggesting this. So that is a 9.5 from the Uncanny Omar and a 8.0 from Wonder Maddie, and 80% is like a C+.
Guys, 8's good.
Wait, public schools? Not public schools, right? Isn't that a B in public schools?
Yeah, it's a B in public schools.
Yeah, private schools. That's a C. See, Matthew knows what's up. I went to private school. I'll never forget, dude. I walked out of private school into public schools, and I was tripping balls when they told me a 90% or 92% was an A. I was like, what? Because it was a 96% in Catholic school.
Yeah.
I was like, 92 is an A? Shit. I'm going to be straight C's then. I got this. Mythical creatures are 100% historically accurate too, Omar. The truth is out there. Okay. I never did finish X-Files. I wonder how that show ended up. Oh, there's a movie and a follow-up movie. All right, we got one more week left. What's it going to be?
Are we going to be able to fit in Harrow County or no?
I probably won't get that copy until next week, so probably not.
Yeah.
I would love to, but Harrow County is one that we can revisit. It was one of my favorite reads this year, though. All right, Minties, if you're out there, let's see some suggestions. What do you all suggest for Tuesday, October 29th? Let us know in the chat or in the comments down below. What should be our final Spooktacular read, Spooktacular read for the month of October? We've done 4 weeks in a row. This has been a lot of fun. I've dusted off some books, then I got to read a new one. So what should we read next week? And don't forget to check out last year's episodes too, because we did some then. We did Hellboy. I was thinking Hellboy Volume 2.
We could do that.
If you wanted to, if nobody else suggested anything else.
Or for me, we'll just do a new volume of Hellboy every year.
And it'll only take you 6 more years to finish Hellboy.
There you go. See?
6 years? Man, I read that like in 1 month. Oh, so somebody else suggested. There we go. Larry said Hellboy Volume 2. What's the Undead Charlie book? Is that what is it? Afterlife with Archie?
I don't know.
I think that's what it was called. How about some Evil Ernie? Man, I haven't read that dude in like 20 years. That's where Lady Death first appeared. Chaos Comics. Now, Maddie's got a Spooktacular book she's doing an overview of tomorrow, right? The Vampirella book?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got him right here, actually.
So she's doing a spooktacular review of that cover on the right, or I guess your left-hand side of your face.
Yeah.
That's pretty hot. Who's the cover artist? I know Linsner is the one on the Dawn of Vampirella.
I'm not sure. Actually, yeah, I think that Joseph Linsner did the covers for both of them.
Okay.
So he did the art for both. But I do know that his wife, Christina Linsner, who wrote this book, did one of the variant covers, which makes her the first woman to write and do art for Vampirella at the same time.
Cool. So we got a couple suggestions. American Vampire, that huge omnibus. Can we read that in a week? Because the series wraps up. We've done omnis like that, but it almost killed Maddie one time when it was Jonathan Hickman's Hickvengers.
Oh, God. Never again.
American Vampire, it is wrapping up. They're finally announced that it's wrapping up next year.
Aw, Larry got Bloom. Yay.
Proof by Grecian. Have you read that?
No.
Oh, okay. It's pretty interesting. Bloom arrived today. Thanks for the recommendation. All right. So you recommended Bloom?
Yep, it's really good.
I believe you.
I like every second book. It's so good.
Every one of them? They haven't made a bad book.
So far, so good.
Knock on wood. Okay.
I keep getting more from the library all the time.
Did anyone read Courtney Crumrin? No. What about Anita Blake? We can get a bunch of those liquidated comics. About 7 years ago, I don't think Marvel could give away those things. Like, I just saw them everywhere liquidated for like $2. So, I think we're going to go with Library Edition Volume 2 of Hellboy.
Let's do it.
Yeah? You good for that?
Yep.
Oh, wait a minute. Miss Marvel, Afterlife with Archie. That's what it was. It was Afterlife with Archie. Thank you, Matthew. Thought that's what it was. Miss Marvel. Wait, which run? The Kelly Sue DeConnick? I may agree with that, actually. It's a pretty frightening book. Frankenstein by Junji Ito.
Yeah, we already did our Ito book for the month, so we can't.
Yeah, we did that.
Although I did check out, I think I checked out Frankenstein in the library.
Yeah. I need to pick up Smashed. That's my last one I'm missing from the Junji Ito library. Okay, so it has been decided.
Yep.
Hellboy Library Edition Volume 2 for Tuesday, October 29th. Deceased is coming out next month in hardcover, and I cannot wait to read that because it's almost. I think it's done because it's been solicited for next month as a hardcover.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what's still going on. We should do. I'd love to do a review once it's done.
Yeah, me too.
Out.
I'm a big Tom Taylor fan. I like that.
My boy's in it. That's all I care about.
Booster Gold?
No, Roy Harper.
Roy Harper. I knew who you meant. First run, the ones behind Maddie.
Oh,
wait, you don't like the Kamala? No, those Kamala Khans were awesome. I like those. I was a big fan of those. Now the Kelly Sue DeConnick books, yeah, those were a little hard to read for me, but that's just me. Anything else, Madeline? Wonder Maddie?
No, that's all.
You got it. You got a book tour coming out. It's finally coming out this Saturday, right? Saturday?
I don't know if we decide on Thursday or Saturday, but whenever.
Thursday or Saturday. One of those. Sure. It's up to you. Yes, it does. Volume 2, Efrain Navarro. It does include the Chain Coffin and the Right Hand of Doom, which that's to me when the story really starts picking up. Courtney Crumrin. Think Harry Potter without the moral sense. Definitely an edge to it. Huh. Did you watch the Watchmen show? I haven't seen it yet. I was going to go watch it tonight sometime.
No, I might wait till it all comes out. But I mean, I'm not the biggest Watchmen fan, so.
Yeah, that's one we have to read. Maybe next year. You'll take the whole month to read it. It's worth it. It's a good read. Oh, here's a good question before we go, though. Colder. I want to read that sometime, Derek. I think that's a good one. I haven't read Evolution by Asmus, but I like a lot of his stuff that he's done. Here's a good question. Favorite horror video game? Santa Claus 2?
Silent Hill 2.
Silent Hill 2. And I think mine was Enemy Zero. Yeah, Enemy Zero. It's a good one. And we are actually, that's our topic for next Thursday on our channel. That's our panel discussion. That's on, comes out on actual Halloween during the day. So, the Uncanny Omar here with my wonderful co-host, Wonder Maddie. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe button. Hit us up on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at NearmanCon. Redbubble. Patreon. And remember, well, no, you do it, Maddie. You do it so well.
And remember, if it's classy and cool, it must be near mint. Night, guys.
Old player, new player. Yes, I'd love to do that. It'd be a long episode, though.